How should a startup begin their compliance journey?
In the case of financial services, the starting point often is a long spreadsheet that a bank or a BaaS company, as we call them, bank as a service company, will send to the fintech and say, hey, you have to comply with all these things. And this is a long list of IT and mobile device management and clean desk policies and all sorts of things. The difficulty for most companies is where to start and how to prioritize these things. So we're trying our best to tell them where to start. Fortunately, there are a number of easy things to get started with, and you don't really need to have everything, all of your ducks in a row immediately. But the starting point is usually pretty overwhelming in the fintech space because banks are regulated and they don't want to get in trouble. And they want to show to their regulators that they ask all the right questions to the fintech. So they bombard the fintech with probably too many questions. The obvious thing to start with is securing the back end of your infrastructure and convincing people that your developers may not necessarily know what they do, and you can't just trust what they have done, and you need to have an additional layer of verification and controls in place. And that would be the starting point. After that, you can look at the other things, but we usually try to figure out the low-hanging fruits first and get them knocked off the list quickly.
Yeah, even earlier than that in your startup journey, you should figure out what's relevant, like what frameworks apply to you and don't apply to you. So things like a privacy framework, like a GDPR or CPA, or HIPAA if you're dealing with healthcare information, PCI if you're dealing with payment data. That's kind of the first thing you have to do is like, is this an area where this is directly in scope and I have to comply with it? Is this an area that's adjacent? I can accept some risk? Or is this an area where like, it doesn't apply to me at all? Great, this is no longer relevant. Once you get that first wave of understanding done, take a deep breath, right? Take a deep breath, breathe, and realize, okay, this is what's adjacent to me. I've narrowed the field. And then that's when people like us will show up and help you make it a lot easier. But I think that's definitely the right starting point. It's just knowing what is relevant and what isn't.
I think once you have like done that part, as in you sort of like figure out whether your customers and yourself are in a regulated industry, if you have to meet a particular standard and whatnot, I guess what you have to figure out is that how would you actually go about do the deployment? Do you actually have the subject matter expertise in your team? Because I mean, half of the compliance will probably lie in the scope of the cloud provider. So now you're looking for people who understand compliance, who understand security, who understand operations, and who know how to code so that they can do, you know, infrastructure as a code and whatnot. So, I mean, we call these people DevSecOps engineer, but I mean, it's so difficult to find like all these skill sets in one person. So then like, how do you do that, right? So I think it's better to think about these things early on, and then appropriately, you should basically pick your cloud technologies and so forth. So I think I would second the thought is that first start with the framework. And I think if you have a good sense of the framework, like PCI is substantially different than SOC 2, basically, right? I mean, the investment, how much you have to do and whatnot is a lot more. So yeah, I think sort of like work through that, find out if you have subject matter expertise, and then figure out like what tools and softwares and people that you need to help you along the journey.